Machine 2.3 has updated the snare drum synth with a new engine called Breaker. And the Breaker drum synth is basically a snare that's going to be an acoustic high-pitched snare meant to cut through the mix perfectly when you're working with like a heavier bass. So it's going to cut through, it's going to be higher pitched, right to the point, right in your face. In that way, it's perfect for genres like drum and bass or breakbeat, anything like this where you would actually sample classic breaks. So we all know breaks are when the entire band would stop and the drummer would have his like play and you would get this phenomenal drum groove. And then typically machine users will sample that and then chop it up and recreate those hits and create new patterns out of the different chopped sample parts. So with the drum synth now, you can kind of forego that and have a little more control over how the sound is going to be. So combine this with the Rasper kick drum synth and you have a nice balance to start a old school break kind of drum kit. So what's going on here? Well, the first thing I did was I loaded up a instance of Easy Drummer 2, which there's a great expansion pack called Funk Masters, which is, for instance, like Clyde Stubblefield from James Brown. You know, he's famous for the Funky Drummer break, which is probably the most popular break of all time. If not, you know, maybe the Amen break, but let's not split hairs here. So this is what it sounds like. So you can hear a nice kind of roomy, high-pitched snare. And that's essentially what's going on here in the Breaker. Very easy to use, obviously, like all the other drum synths. The main things you have to worry about are tuning again. By default, it comes in about here and 73, and I think is probably the best spot for it. Decay, just kind of how snappy you want it. And then you can individually tune the skin and adjust the amount of impact. More of the strike from the stick. Then on the second page, you have the spectra. And this is where the sound generator happens. And the spectra is meant to mimic the wires on the snare. You have two modes. A, which is the default. You can adjust the amount and the decay of that. So this gives it, you know, a very roomy kind of sound when this one is applied. And then if you switch it over to B, almost sounds like a tambourine hit in conjunction. Think of the Four Tops, I'll Be There, the classic, you know, classic song where I'll be there. I mean, it sounds like instant Four Tops right away. So, very simple to use, very easy to program and kind of dial in a sound right away. Again, what you're going to find this helpful for is when you wanted that kind of break, chopped up drum sound, drum hit for a snare, and you don't necessarily want to go in and sample a record, you can kind of dial in a sound like this and have a more immediate snare drum that you can program.